Hey Wilds, Lauren Wild here. We are going to do a Tarot Tuesday offering. It looks like it's becoming more of like a once in a lunar cycle offering versus a weekly offering. I guess that's just what it is. I'm cool with it. I also wanted to direct your attention to one thing that is hilarious, and that is the sticky thing that my son Solomon threw up there. That thing's been up there for almost a month, and it still hasn't fallen off my ceiling, and I didn't really notice it until I started recording, and that's funny. Okay, squirrel. So what we're going to be talking about today is how to start to grow your esoteric language, right? The archetypes of astrology and tarot. We're not going to get into Kabbalah here because that's going too far today. However, it is a little introductory towards that, okay? Now, I know I've told you guys before on my Tarot Tuesdays, my professional deck is Thoth. Like this is what I learned tarot, like really learned depth tarot on. And it is by far the most high ceremonial magic and esoteric occult type of tarot deck that there is. Originally developed by Aleister Crowley, who many people know as the Beast, and he did some pretty awful shit, but his deck is amazing. Right? And it's very feminine, right? There are no kings in this deck. There are only queens. So if you can get past, Aleister Crowley and his shit, cool. But this is my tarot deck, okay? This is what I really use. Now, one thing that's cool about the Thoth deck is that it naturally has a ton of esoteric symbolism in it. Oh, I pulled the Queen of Pentacles. That's my favorite. It already has a ton of esoteric symbolism in the pictures, more so than any deck I've ever known. It's very detailed. But also, it has the aspects of the astrology in it. I keep pulling on. Here we go. Right, so here's the Two of Discs. So hopefully you can see it. Do you see this sign? This is the glyph for Jupiter, and this is the glyph for Capricorn. So it's one thing to be able to memorize the Two of Earth or the Two of Pentacles or the Two of Discs, right? As needing to make a choice of something that's like in the material real world. Like there's a choice between two real living things, right? But it's even more important and it adds a lot to your ability to read cards and to become a proficient astrologer is by understanding what the archetype of Jupiter in Capricorn means is the Two of Discs, right? So choices, right? Like material choices is what that archetype represents. So what happens is that the more that you learn how these two things work together, the more that if you saw somebody's chart and you saw they had Jupiter and Capricorn, and your brain now catalogs this esoteric symbol, this archetype, this is Maui, say hi Maui, then you will be able to understand this as a whole archetype of how that energy shows up in their chart, okay? And that's depth astrology, which is what I teach. I do not teach pop astrology or pop tarot or anything esoteric. Everything is the depths, and that's my Enneagram 4, and that is all of my Scorpio, right? So it's the depths. The cool thing is like, I'm not expecting every person to watch this to be like, oh yes, this makes total sense to me. It's more of like a one-on-one, right? So say that you pull cards and you're like, I don't know how this even applies. If you have a deck that has like the symbols in it, which I'll show you a deck that isn't Thoth in case it freaks some people out, then you can like look in your chart and notice where is Jupiter in my chart and where is Capricorn in my chart. You might notice that you have natally Jupiter in Capricorn, and it's about that particular quadrant of your chart, so you can get a lot more details about that. Or you need to look at where Jupiter is in your chart, right? Maybe it's in like the 6th house of your health and your service and your workplace environment, your daily routine, right? Like maybe it's like you are a little obsessive, or you are really on your diet, or you're really off and self-indulgent, right? So it might have something to do with that. You'd also want to look at where Capricorn is in your chart. And by looking at those two aspects, you would get a lot more out of your reading. Okay, so let me show you something really quick. You have two options. So say that you just have like a regular Rider-Waite deck, right? Well, what you could do is you could pull a card. So say I pulled the Page of Pentacles and I'm like, well, what does the page want to tell me? You can use something like an astrology deck to pull and be able to get a clear understanding of maybe what astrology sign is showing up for you, or what is the message of that zodiac sign that it wants to bring you. So you could ask something like, well, what astrology sign, what medicine from that zodiac sign wants to support me in this time, right? And the North Node came out. So when I think of, this reading, which is the Page of Pentacles, some sort of like material, physical offering, maybe of land or a long-term committed relationship or money, is in part a part of my North Node, my destiny, right? And that's just, I had 2 cards pop out. Let's see what else. And 10th house, career. Okay, so yeah, somebody's bringing me a message of my career. Cool, sounds great. All right, so you could do something like that where you have a regular tarot deck and then an astrology deck. I love the Numius astrology deck. I also really, the one I've been using forever is Black Moon. It's a lot more intense. It's not as like pretty, but it's very intense, if you like that, right? All my Enneagram 4s, Scorpio, water people. The other one is, this is a really cool deck. It's called Next World Tarot. It's so Aquarian, I can hardly stand it. I love it. I need to use it more often. It's just like, when I use tarot decks, I have like 50 of them, but really I only use 2 tarot decks. So I really don't need more than that, but I love this deck so much. It is very Aquarian. It has a ton of representation, but what it also has at the bottom, it's not as esoteric, but it does say down here like the archetype of moon in Aquarius, right? So you're not going to be able to internalize the glyphs like I would want my students to know, but it will, say, the fire, Leo, the sun, right? And the sun is a Leo. It represents Leo, right? Whereas like the 4 of Pentacles, you can see down here, it's, the sun in Capricorn. And so these are like, I really like this deck because it does that. It's easier to access, but I'm also very much a believer in like the roots of the esoteric arts, like go to the hardest thing and like perfect that, and then everything is easy. That's probably my Saturn and Scorpio. But I have found that if you do that, you will be able to understand all of the languages better than if you only learn a portion of it and then you're limited. So again, I recognize it's a little sporadic in its teaching, but I have some friends that, do read charts. And, it's helpful when you're reading a chart that if you're like, I don't understand how that aspect lands for you, that you can get out your deck and ask like, well, how does this person's, natal Chiron opposite their sun affect them? And you can ask your cards and read the cards, and they'll give you a deeper understanding, right? And that's the same thing for yourself, which is like asking like, how is the new moon in Aries going to affect me? And you can pull those cards, and then you can use your astrology cards to get even more clear on what those medicines are that they're trying to bring into your life, okay? Hopefully this makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't make sense. I will say it's a little bit of a shameless plug in the sense that like I have a few seats left for my apprenticeship, and then also my year 2 astrology. So I can only take in people that understand the wheel of the chart and understand basic, like beginner to intermediate astrology. But I have opening seats for my year 2, my astrology program, my esoteric program, and then my apprenticeship. So being able to work with me one-on-one for a whole year, figure out what your Dharma is, get your Dharma project off the ground, and really root yourself into your practice, your witchcraft, your gifts, and then your ground. Like, what is your sovereign ground that you're standing upon? Okay. So little shameless plug, but I want you guys to know I'm a really good teacher at this stuff, and I help every one of my students be able to really ground down into these esoteric teachings that they are able to apply into every part of their life and their offerings. So it's worth the investment. All right, guys, I hope you have a great day. Go to my website, laurenwild.com, click on apprenticeship, and you will see it there to apply if you are interested in my apprenticeship. I'll see you later. Bye.